I don't think Israel deserves a country. Not the current government that's doing it. If ending war and poverty could be accomplished by terminating my existence, kill me right now. Why is it I'm here as a godless, childless heathen willing to do more than all of these God botherers, all of these governments, and all of these proposed gods?
I think we all agree that the Americans were right against the Nazis. I hope we all agree on that.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for watching. Most of the content on my channel is supported by generous patrons, but made available for free to the entire world. If you support that, please consider adding your support at patreon.com/atheistdebates. This clip, however, is from one of the many programs that I do on YouTube on The Line. And if you liked it, feel free to visit, like, subscribe, and watch The Line Network live. Thank you. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Hang Up. It is Wednesday. My name is Matt Dillahunty. Thank you so much for joining us here on The Line. I've got a lot to get to. My guest tonight is Jimmy Snow, and we'll get to that. But also, apologies in advance. There's going to be some sensitive and problematic and potential triggering discussion related to sexual assault at the start of this. I just want to make people aware so that they could tune out for a minute or prepare themselves if they needed to. But it's really kind of strange. One of my former co-hosts on another program famously made a great point during one of the shows. Someone was trying to defend, their God and how they allow for freedom and for people to have the freedom to choose, only to potentially pay consequences later. And she mentioned that if you were to walk in on someone sexually assaulting a child, you would do something. So would she, and so would I, and so would any of us. Even if you're not able to personally, physically intervene to stop it, call for help. You can get other people involved. There's no way you're just like, oh, and close the door and move on with your life. And yet, that's what a lot of people's God does. Sits there and says, I see what you're doing. Not going to do anything about it, but someday you'll pay, unless I choose to forgive you, and then you won't pay. It was a simple and powerful message, because intuitively, we tend to know what we think about injustices like rape. And it leads to some really difficult and confusing excuses where people will be sitting there saying, oh, yes, but, was it rape? Was it sexual assault? Was it sexual battery? Was it aggravated sexual assault? Was it inappropriate touching? Was this, hey, somebody had a bit too much to drink and we don't want to call it that? Was it date rape? Was it, we don't know. Oh, because if it's real rape, we've heard from the believers, God has a way to shut that shit down. So we can actually not only excuse it and deny people who are pregnant from sexual assaults, deny them access to abortion health care, because if it was really rape, God could shut that down. Just like in the Bible, if it was really rape, you would have heard the woman screaming. And anything short of that, she's probably complicit. I don't care what the distinctions are between categories of sexual assault, rape, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't matter. They're all wrong. The only difference may be in how best to react and what the consequences should be for the perpetrator. But allowing it to continue is wrong. Being complicit or supportive is wrong. It doesn't matter what they were wearing. It doesn't matter if they consented and withdrew consent. It doesn't matter whether somebody else considers it sexual assault or not. The perpetrator, it doesn't matter that they've had a hard life or that they have some rationalization or justification. That doesn't excuse their actions, and it could never excuse your inaction from interceding to stop it. This is obvious. I suspect that everybody sitting there is sitting there saying, yeah, duh, of course. You're absolutely right. They're probably not as happy about me calling out their God for sitting by and watching, but with regard to what we should do and what's morally, I would think that every decent human being on the planet would agree. That same thing should be true for other human rights violations like genocide. I understand that international foreign relations are complicated and that we have treaties in place and other agreements, but it's not complicated if you just care about what's right. This is a technical genocide that is taking place in Gaza. I'd say it's an actual genocide in any meaningful sense. A good chunk of the world is debating, is it a genocide? Is it not a genocide? And some of them are accusing you because, hey, the Jews are our friends and the other people are, they're terrorists. So we're going to side with our friends over the terrorists, right? And even more excuse it because of religious reasons and Israel's place in the apocalypse that they think is coming. Now, when it comes to categorizing things, I don't know what counts as a liberal or a leftist. I think I have an idea, but a lot of people use the terms in slightly different ways. And I don't really care. The same thing is true with a distinction between socialist and some other category, or anarchist and some other I don't care. My personal positions on everything are based, whenever possible, on data and strong evidence, and on empathy and equality as a foundation where facts and data aren't readily available. So is what's happening in Gaza genocide? Who cares? It's wrong. Allowing it to continue when you could intervene is wrong. Being complicit is wrong. Supporting the attacker is even more wrong. How much more wrong can we, as the United States, get before we are simply jointly engaged in the systematic genocide of a group of people? Is it a war crime? Yes, it is. But does it matter? No, because it's fucking wrong. You'll hear phrasing like, well, they have a right to defend themselves. Whoop-de-doo! If your idea of defending yourself is to starve and slaughter the family of whoever threatened you, you're wrong. You're Kaiser Sose. And those folks that you are now an aggressor towards have a right to defend themselves. And then you have a right to defend yourselves from them, and they have a right to defend yourselves from you. And it's this overreaction leads to an eye for an eye, which leaves the whole world blind. And if nothing happens to de-escalate this, annihilation and genocide are the only outcomes. Two Israeli human rights groups say that Israel is committing genocide right now. Oh, there's lefty groups in Israel. Yeah, I'm sure there are. I'm sure that's what will get blamed on. But two Israeli human rights groups say that Israel is committing genocide. There are other national and international aid organizations around the world that agree. But it doesn't matter because it's still wrong whether you think it's a genocide or not. There is now very strong evidence of starvation and acute malnutrition. And that's two of the three criteria before we declare a famine. When we have enough deaths from malnutrition, this will be a famine. Not a natural disaster famine. A famine systematically imposed on one group of people by another. Those are the types of things that we make war crimes. We can't call it a famine yet because we don't have access to data that shows that there's enough deaths to say it's a famine, but it may already be one. And it doesn't matter because it's wrong. 20,000 kids were treated for acute malnutrition. 16 deaths. 70% of Gaza infrastructure has been destroyed. Less than 12% of the Strip is a safe zone. 500,000 people will be in a categorized catastrophic state, IPC Phase 5. 762,500 people have been displaced. 60,000 are dead, including 18,592 kids. And that's if you trust the numbers coming from Gaza Health Ministry, because we can't get data on a number of things. And even when we do, unlike Charlie Kirk, I don't trust my government. I don't trust the current lying administration to get me good information or tell me anything useful about what's going on. This is both for the Republicans and the Democrats. These are human rights abuses. These are war crimes. This is a genocide. This is approaching a famine. This is restricted humanitarian access. Because one group of people is ready to exterminate some portion of another group of people. And most of the rest of the world is sitting by, allowing it to happen, or helping it happen. Bernie Sanders wants to block arms sales to Israel. Yeah, I'd say that should definitely fucking happen right away. AIPAC, the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, which I view as the propaganda wing for the current Israeli government, is spreading information that is completely one-sided. And no matter how accurate it is, even with the information they're providing, it's still wrong. I have for years supported a two-state solution like Bernie Sanders does. But honestly, my position on that is shifting fairly quickly. I don't care if you want an ethno-state, you don't get one. You can't have an ethno-state or a religious state without violating basic humanitarian rules. You don't get to sit on the world stage and continue to commit atrocities and deny people access to food because you think that you deserve or have some God-given right or otherwise given right to create an ethno-state. The distractions and the whataboutism and the de facto status quo support for Israel, that has to end. The United States must intervene to halt this atrocity. And anyone who doesn't agree had better be ready to walk right up to those starving kids and the grieving parents and explain to their fucking face why they don't matter enough to protect. Anything less at this point is grossly immoral. And any person, any God or government suggesting that this is a morally correct position to continue denying aid and destroying lives is vile and disgusting in the extreme. I'm a secularist, I'm a secular humanist, I'm a skeptic, I'm an atheist. So the God arguments aren't going to be particularly compelling to me. I don't care what your God wants. If your God wants something, he can come down and do it himself instead of continually sitting back and letting his armed thugs go around impacting the world the way they are. It doesn't just apply where there's genocide, that's global. I'm a veteran. I'm someone who understands and defends the Constitution for what it is and what it's supposed to be and what is being denied. At this point, I don't think Israel deserves a country. Not the current government that's doing it. I don't know what the solution is. I don't want to take any action to stop that. But we have to stop the atrocity. We have to stop the killing. We have to stop the starving. if you're in favor of this, if you or your God is in favor of what's actually going on, the starvation and extermination of a group of people, I'd love to hear why. I can virtually guarantee you it will not go well. And I can't even imagine criteria that would get me to agree with you, but I'd still love to know why. Because I think what's happening is that most people are opposed to this, but they're too afraid to say so. I think what's happened is that when most decent people look at what's actually going on, they would say, yes, I would intervene, but I feel helpless. This is what we saw in recent interviews. Well, the Democrats don't have any power. The fuck you don't! You're not in control of the government in the United States, but you have power. Do your goddamn job. I got in an argument briefly the other day with a friend of mine that I haven't spoken to in many, many years. And he tried to do there's evil people on both sides, Matt. And, it's a difficult situation. The whataboutism and the both sidesing. He's like, I don't really want to talk about politics. I just wish they'd do enact the will of the people. That's what their job is, to enact the will of the people. No, it's not. The people are fucking stupid. And if people want to own slaves, you don't get to enact that will. And if people want to exterminate other groups, you don't get to enact that will. Their job, our representative's job, is to support the Constitution of the United States and to work with other nations to end this sort of thing, not enact the will of the people. I could give a fuck about the will of the people. I only care about what's right. If I'm wrong, show me where I'm wrong. Because my positions, as I said, are based on data and evidence. And when there isn't data and strong evidence for something, then the foundation goes back to empathy and equality. Show me where I'm wrong. I don't think you can. I don't think you will. And I think you're going to sit there and think that you have some moral high ground or some authority from God, or you really wish things were better, but you can't do anything. I get it. I don't know what else I can do other than support the right people during elections to call and protest. It's not like I can pack up and go over to Gaza myself and fix it, but I would. If ending war and poverty could be accomplished by terminating my existence, fucking kill me right now. Why is it I'm here as a godless, childless heathen willing to do more than all of these God botherers, all of these governments, and all of these proposed gods? What are any of them doing to end the destruction? Nothing, as far as I can see. And so if you think you've got a defense for it, by all means, call in. Welcome, Jimmy Snow, to Matt's Ranty Wednesday thing.
Oh, let me get my mic on. I've got it's going to seem like it's not related, but it will be. A little history thing. I wonder, have you ever heard any of the following names? There is Jake Bird, Joe Ball, aka the Alligator Man, the Cleveland Torso Murderer, and Paul Jaworski. Have you heard any of those names?
I don't think so.
These were serial killers that were active around the same time we were fighting the Nazis. And I just wonder whether or not anybody would have been like, sure, the Nazis are bad, but the Americans had some serial killers during that period of time. So there's bad on both sides. Yeah. I hate when the bad on both sides has nothing to do with addressing the point that even if there's bad on both sides, one of them's right, and it has nothing to do with the bad that's happening on that side. I think we all agree that the Americans were right against the Nazis. I hope we all agree on that. But we had serial killers at that time. So what moral high ground can Americans take over goddamn Nazis?
Yeah, it's very frustrating because it's a dodge. It's very obvious. When I was talking to my friend, and it was just a mild argument, but it was a constant. Let me avoid this, and let me bring up the one talking point I heard from somebody somewhere, that suggests my side isn't necessarily the most problematic if we only were to focus on that one thing.
Right.
And it's like, oh, Obamacare was really good the way it was originally written, and then the Republicans and Democrats got in there and ruined it, and that's why we needed Trump to come back and rescue it back to what it originally was. It's like, to whatever extent that is true, it's completely irrelevant anyway, because wishful laws aren't fucking laws.
Yeah. When did you graduate from the Roger Ailes School of Whataboutism? Magna cum laude. Magna cum way too loud. I
hope
I don't know.
Never come again.
I had I was in a debate in VR the other night too with a person who was doing similar stuff, and one of the things I was trying to express to him was the concept of, he was defending police brutality and would give you, it was just a few bad apples. And I was like, sir, the full phrase is a few bad apples ruins the bunch. And so then I tried to explain to him this concept of systemic issues. If you're a good apple, but you participate in a system that covers for a bad apple, you have been spoiled by the bunch. Or I think it's actually the barrel. I think the phrase is barrel. Anyway, and so I shifted it because I knew the guy wasn't Catholic and I thought it would work this way. And I shifted it to look at pedophilia in the Catholic Church. We now know that is a systemic issue that went all the way up to a pope and is probably a part of why that one pope resigned and stepped down. Absolutely, that is a systemic issue. And one of the funny things that he tried to do, instead of engaging the point at all, is like, oh yeah, so the whole Catholic community are bad because of a few bad pedophiles. You're condemning all Catholics and saying they're all bad. And first of all, that was wrong. And then he goes, well, you must be very familiar. So can you name a single one of those pedophiles? Which at some point I remembered Cardinal Pell has some pretty interesting accusations out there. But at first I was like, name pedophiles, as though you aren't aware this is a systemic issue. If I can't get, well, you said you're acting like you're so familiar. And I was like, name 5 Nazis, right? You'll get Hitler. I'll give you that one. Name 4 more Nazis. Well, if you can't name them, the Nazi, and then the Holocaust didn't happen because you've not named a single Nazi. Anyway, I could have made up names. It would have worked. Father Tom. I'm positive there was a Father Tom along the way.
What you don't even have to go very far, because it's a constant parade of people in the church and in the Republican Party, et cetera, who are being tried and convicted on sexually assaulting children and stuff like that. But it reminds me, this whole, can you name somebody? Okay.
Yeah.
Name a trans female athlete in the NCAA.
Yeah.
This shit doesn't matter. This is what they end up doing. And my favorite parody of this kind of was when it came to evolution. And the creationists would be like, well, name a prominent scientist that, actually supports evolution. And so this is how Project Steve came about. And Project Steve is a list of Steves who have signed up, just scientists, just life scientists, whose first name is Steve or Stephen or Stephanie or a derivation of that. There are over 1,500 signers from life sciences whose name is Steve as of last year. That's prominent scientists who support evolution. And so it was like, oh, not only can I name one, I can name 1,500 named Steve. Here's a little checklist. Here's a little sign-up sheet right here. And that doesn't include the ones like Joe, Dave, John, all the names that are more common than Stephen. It is It is this, oh, I think that you're talking out of your ass and you don't actually know what's going on. And what's funny is, I think there's a good case to be made that all the people that are in MAGA, for example, and supportive, fall into one of a couple of different categories. Either they are grossly uninformed or ill-informed about what's actually going on, or they are grossly confused about what ought to be going on, either because of their religious beliefs or whatever else. And so, because they all think they're right, we all think we're right. Congratulations. Every time you've been wrong, you thought you were right, and it felt exactly like being right until you figured out you were wrong. But they think everybody else is as ill-informed as they are. In this discussion that I was having, he tried to do this, well, if all you watch is MSNBC, you only get one side of stuff. And if you watch Fox News, you only get one side of stuff. And I didn't even say it, but I haven't spent any time apart from clips watching either of those in ages. But I've watched both. And more independent networks and Ground News. And Ground News should be a sponsor of me. Ground News should give me millions upon millions of dollars.
They do sponsor some of the people I know they've sponsored Apologia and Vice Rhino and a few others. I don't think they're giving out millions, though.
Well, I'm different. Yeah. I'm special. Yeah. Hey, right. Ground News, give me a call. I will take your money because I use your product and I like it.
Yeah. We can't raise $1 million of revenue in a year, but surely our endorsement will.
Test. If you enjoyed on the line right here on YouTube. Hi, if you enjoyed that content, you can watch this program and a number of others on the Line Network right here on YouTube. Link below. I don't have anything else. Fuck it.